I suppose some type of explanation is in order. Because for a good while, every Tuesday was Strength Tip Tuesday. But then they all of a sudden kind of stopped. And there's an explanation. To be honest, it wasn't for lack of effort. Every Tuesday I was back behind the camera filming some topics, and I mean it got really dark. Within a few frames or a few video clips, before I knew it, I would just start to get really emotional and really upset. Red in the face, foaming at the mouth, I start to sweat, screaming at my camera. Completely out of control. Just screaming, talking about these things that kind of irritate me about what people do day to day. It got really dark. So now, I had some time to think and decompress and cool off, and I think we can get things back on track. So let's give it a shot.
Top Strength Project coming at you again with another Strength Tip Tuesday.
And what we're going to cover today are the two main reasons why you've been at the gym for 10 plus hours a week for at least the last 2 years and you haven't put on any muscle.
In my opinion, which doesn't matter, if your goal is hypertrophy or building muscle, there's two main things you need to consider. Come on, get on the right side, my left side's fucked up. The first is your ego, and that's gotta go. Because if you're lifting with your ego, you're gonna find yourself swinging 50-pound hammer curls because you think the hot girl with the ass on the elliptical is watching you, but she's not. She's watching me. Or maybe him. You see, your ego is going to prevent you from choosing a weight that you can properly and appropriately lift and squeeze. If you're too heavy, you can't get that stimulus at the end of each repetition. I'm gonna get a pump and cut the video. I film it because I gotta see what the pump's at. Chucking your ego out the door plays right in to the second point, which is your mentality, or essentially the way you approach, interpret, and execute every repetition you perform contained within every set of every exercise, within every workout that you do every day when you train. There's a decision that has to be made before you even get to the gym, and that is, am I doing this to build strength or am I doing this to build muscle? There is overlap, but they're not the same thing. So there's overlap, but they're not the same thing. What am I talking about? I don't really know. I would say that the most optimal way to build muscle would be to work that muscle to complete fatigue by flexing and squeezing into the weight. So let's say the optimal approach or mentality to have, if your goal is to build muscle, is first to focus on maximal contraction, number one. Number two is over the proper mechanical range of motion to lengthen and shorten the muscle as much as possible. And the third is under as much weight as possible. What I see a lot of people doing is working within a hypertrophy rep scheme, which is 8 to 12 reps or greater, and they're trying to lift as much weight as possible. So they'll hit 315 on the bench press for 10. Okay, yeah, but where did you feel it? They probably didn't feel it in their chest. Typically when prescribing a program for someone who's trying to build muscle, I'll give them a range, 8 to 12 reps or 10 to 15 reps. So you hit that 315 on the bench for 10, okay? Rather than add weight, I'd rather have you do another set and see if you can fatigue that muscle with the same weight in less reps. I use cues, like rather than pressing the bar, bringing my elbows together, because that creates more of an optimal pec contraction. And now I only get 7 or 8 repetitions with the same weight I just did for 10. Not because I'm weaker, but because my chest failed under the weight. Athletes or strength athletes train movements like a squat or a bench press, and they want to move as much weight as they can in that movement to refine or improve a skill. Bodybuilders train muscles, so let's take that a step further. A strength athlete, a football player or a power lifter would train the squat and try and improve their max and their capacity in the squat. A bodybuilder would use a squat to train his quads. He doesn't give a shit about how much he's lifted. He wants to be able to effectively contract his muscles under as much weight as possible. And that's the next point. I'm not saying cut your weight way down. I'm saying do a set of 8 reps or above, squeezing into it with as much weight as possible. So that's the next point about your mentality, is cueing, right? Your thought process going into an exercise. The bench press, I talked about the bar. I'm not thinking about lifting the bar as much as I am bringing my elbow across, flexing the pec. So maybe the bench press with a barbell isn't the best choice. Perhaps a chest fly where I can get more range and a better squeeze and my elbows come closer together is a better choice. Or if I was doing a row or any pull movement, I'm not thinking about bringing the dumbbell to my chest. I'm thinking about pulling from the elbow and bringing my elbow as far back as I can to squeeze the lat rather than pull as much weight as possible to my chest. Another cue with delts, pulling from my elbow and utilizing this muscle to do so. This is a technique called intention. Basically the way you mentalize and interpret and execute an exercise. You're not trying to lift the weight or move the barbell or dumbbell as much as you are trying to squeeze and contract the muscle as hard as possible underneath a resistance. And guess what, you fucking egomaniacs? No, you're not gonna be able to lift nearly as much weight using these principles as you could before. Not yet anyway. And that's fine, because you're gonna build a lot more muscle. So perhaps, over time, maybe that girl with the ass on the elliptical will be admiring the new gains, and not because you're flailing around like a fish out of water, pulling way too much weight around. This is the best fucking exercise, man. I don't give a shit what you say. So in closing, gym bros and broettes, why aren't you building any muscle? Because it hurts. It hurts your ego. Because the appropriate amount of weight that you can optimally flex into and squeeze into as hard as you can for 10 reps is probably significantly less. It's definitely significantly less than how much weight you can just lift for 10 reps. And it also just straight up hurts. Training to complete failure for every set, or at least most of your sets, drop sets, superset, compound sets, giant sets, long periods of time under tension, forcing as much fluid into the muscle cell as possible so that it swells and tears, is painful. So here comes the plug. If you have any interest in learning more about these principles and how to apply them into your training, how to create programs to optimally build hypertrophy, Top Strength Hypertrophy Camps are starting next month on October 1st. For more information on class times and pricing, I'll make sure to include a link below in the description to both our Facebook and our website where you guys can find more information. Don't put off signing up. Both classes will be capped at 8 people. I think that's it. Tune in next week for another Strength Tip Tuesday.